The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplify Motion Physical Therapy in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me as always is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution PT and Fitness in Connecticut and Long Island. How are we doing today, Brian?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hanging in there. Locked in. Let's do
Locked
this.
in. I love it. I love it. I got the new haircut. I'm a little faster down the sides for those of you looking on the video. This is good. Ready to go.
It's good. I'm well overdue, but I'm holding on to whatever hair I got. So that's the key on my end.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, it's the one thing I got was a great head of hair. So today we are going to be going over, it's actually, longtime listeners of this podcast, just to set it up for anybody who might be listening new. Brian and I run a consulting group, whatever you want to call it, coaching group, mentorship group, called Physio Growth. And the reason we came up with it is I spent about 14 years in corporate PT, working my way up the ladder to the point that I was running a region with, about 5 million a year in business, 45 PTs under me, and we got it to a successful sale, right, to one of the big private equity firms. Brian, on the other hand, started out of the back of his car, right, as a mobile therapist, and he built it up into what is he now at 5 clinics and somewhere around 2 million-ish in projected revenue for the year, right? Not I've done 2 million in my life, but like yearly. So we figured, okay, we have a pretty good idea of how to run a business. But as we started this podcast, what longtime listeners will know is that it kind of started with me just starting my own business. So I got out of the corporate world after that. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own mobile PT. I think it's a great time to do it, all that stuff. And that was about a year ago today. So I had my 1-year anniversary, September 21st, I believe. And I just wanted to kind of shout that out because it's going to be the topic of today's episode. I think a lot of what all in, I made somewhere around 40, I want to say it was either $45,000 or $50,000 in my first year. So with, started out of the back of my car, bought everything from there to today. And typically when I've talked to other business owners, it's somewhere around like 30,000, right? That you start making, maybe 40, depending on, if you get a good client or whatever. And I think that a lot of what that is, a lot of what I've been able to build, and honestly, the systems I've put in place to keep growing, right? A lot of that has just been down to the fact that we've been able to talk like this every week. I mean, let's be honest. I've got a free coaching session like once a week. So
I think one of the things
one of
the things that I think people said with the podcast, like the way this all came about was Owen goes, "Hear me out. We should record these talks." Right. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of value in what we're talking about and what we're building. And again, we've talked about this multiple times, like with Physio Growth and what we're trying to do with this podcast, which is help people, understand the mistakes that particularly that I made in the beginning, and you want to find mentorship of a person a couple steps ahead of you so that eventually you don't have to make those same mistakes. So you can either make the mistakes and pay for them, or you can pay not to make those mistakes. Right. And so that's a lot of what we were talking about. And so, yeah, we'll go over a lot today on how that's going. And the cool part is, Owen's just getting started. This is year 1, but I can't wait for year 2 and year 3. And so we'll chat more about how those projections look and what to think about from that perspective. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the cool part is I think, I got to a good number that I'm happy with that I didn't think I would get to. And then also I'm really happy because I think I have a lot of systems in place and we can talk about that later. Yep. And if you are looking to grow your PT business, you can do that with Physio Growth. Physio Growth provides the mentorship and tools you need to succeed. Visit school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group and unlock your practice's potential.
Nice.
I'm getting better at these.
That's good, man. It's good.
I read the third one down instead of the first one.
Oh, you messed me up.
No, you can't screw it up mid episode.
You're right.
There you go. Yeah. So
talk us through, Owen. So talk us kind of through in this case. So we're talking about your review.
Hmm.
Talk us like again, because I know you said the numbers, but walk us through down, and it's cool that you're being transparent with the numbers for those listening. Obviously, like this is great that he's doing this. Talk to me about what your goal was in year one. Talk about how you
Oh
set
yeah.
it up, right?
So I talked to a lot of business owners in the area, right? You know, my 1, 3, and 10 rule of like mentorship: get somebody 1 year ahead, 3 years ahead, and then 10 years ahead. So I talked to a few who've done it, and every one of them kind of told me somewhere in this neighborhood. If and we're talking from like cold start, right? I wasn't, at a CrossFit gym and they were begging me to like open a practice in their gym and no one else wanted to. This was literally me knocking on doors, talking with friends, like cold start. I was figuring maybe I'd make about 35,000. Right. I did the numbers and kind of projected out every year or every month and looked at what I thought I could bring in with word of mouth referrals, and with some of the contacts that I had from my corporate days. Um, but yeah, I'd probably say I was probably somewhere around 30, 35, maybe
Nice,
40 if I was being ambitious, if I had like a good client near the end, something like that.
nice. And talk about how you set it up, how you set the transition up.
From like going to corporate, from corporate to,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
because there's people listening that are like, "How the hell would I do this?" Like, how
Yeah.
again, like full transparency. Owen probably was not thinking, "I'm going to live off of $35,000 for the year with a family with two
No,
kids," right?
so
Yeah. So
that is an important thing because anybody who's not, knee deep in planning for this will look at 50 and say, well, a staff PT starting out makes 65 in my area, 70, whatever. Why would I do that? I also took, obviously, as everyone does, you take PRN work, right? So there was a workers' comp clinic. I had a lot of experience in workers' comp, so that was an easy one. There was a rehab hospital, and I took those jobs. And I also did a 1099 for another home care PT. Right. So she was growing. She needed another person. And I said, oh, I can take some people. So I was able to take business and kind of cobble together some PRN shifts for the first 2 or 3 months. And then right around like January, especially here in Phoenix, it's very seasonal. So January is when I started getting more people, right? I started
mhm,
getting some more word of mouth and excuse me, um, some bigger clients that wanted a little bit more of my time, things like that. Um, and that was really good. And then it just kind of became this shift, right? Like you get a little bit more business, so you take less PRN shifts, right? Um, and the cool part about it is, honestly, I made more. If you look at the whole year, right? I made more doing it this way than I would if I stayed as a one of the highest paid managers in my corporate job, right? Because
totally.
I finished as a clinic manager, like I wasn't a regional because I was stepping down. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've made better than what I made at my corporate job with the PRN stuff and this. Now the nice thing is this is in this month, my last month of the year. I only take one shift a week, right? And honestly, if I get one more patient, I'm dropping that shift, right?
Yeah.
So in
So now you're
one
full in
year,
on your business.
yeah, yeah. And the
Nice.
nice part is now today I had two cancellations, but they were packages, so whatever. They already paid me, and I was able to do a lot of marketing. I think I talked to like 2 or 3 concierge docs and a gym owner, right?
Nice.
Whereas before I had to shove everything into like the 2 days I wasn't doing PRN shifts. So the hope is, kind of it starts going up now that I can actually
Of
market
course. Now it starts snowballing, right? Exactly.
it. Yeah.
So in terms of like where you are now,
Hmm.
where you came from, right? Because I also don't know if you're being so you don't have to talk about again, withhold what you don't want to talk about, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of the total, because you've thrown out some other numbers, what is
Yeah.
your LLC? What is your LLC done in gross revenue?
Oh yeah. So okay. So what I'm talking about, the 50,000 is from me and my marketing alone, right? So me getting business, me going out like that. The LLC itself has made it was 110,000 of that.
So here's the one thing I want to tell for listeners, and I baited Owen in this, and he doesn't know this
Right?
because he's being conservative with his numbers because that I actually
I
know I knew that number was over 100 grand. So in his
Yeah.
first year in his LLC, he really made over 100 grand.
Well,
again,
so
I know the intimate details. I know some of the processes of what's going on.
we had a very,
And
very lucrative
yes,
client
yes.
that
Well,
for
no,
me,
and
yeah.
the reality of it is Owen, in my opinion, Owen set himself up. I don't want to say lucky because it's not lucky because Owen's a great physical therapist, has great connections, and that's why I believe like this happened. We talked about it, but he
Yeah.
had some situations that landed. It's very similar to what happened with me in New York City Football Club, and that just because New York City Football Club pays me and pays our company, even though that's one client, it's the same thing. So again, one of the things that you wouldn't have been able to do this with your corporate job. So the reality is like Owen, in my mind, as his LLC, really, he's saying like based off of boots on the ground and certain things, made about 50K or so, even more.
Yeah.
But the reality is actually 100K. And so when his projection was 335, thousand. Now, what he's thinking about is long-term sustainability.
Yes.
That's what he's thinking about,
Yep.
and I totally understand that. But that's different than what he made this year. Right? So
And it's
we're gonna
important.
pivot. We're gonna pivot to that because
Yeah.
let's so overall for our listeners, in the first year, just by doing what we're doing and talking about Owen did it, he made over six figures, and that's not including his PRN job. That's just what he did there.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
I held the effing, but that was awesome. That, I mean, sick. I think again, like, you got to pat yourself on the back. That's awesome. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two.
I have a hard, sorry to cut you off, but
No, you're
I
good.
have this
You're
like
good.
hard time of like being like I'm awesome because then I'm like, oh crap, I got to do it
I
again next
know.
year.
Oh, so here's what Owen is, and here's what Owen is, and this is if you're afraid of starting anything, whether it's, again, if you're afraid of starting anything, whether it's your own business, whether it's something along the lines of some kind of like side hustle, if it's something with workshops within a business, if it's something with, something where you're adding a new service to a business's cash-based system, if it's insurance-based stuff, whatever, if you're nervous about doing that, right? Just look no further than what Owen was doing and where it just sort of came together. The best people, the best entrepreneurs work hard and are worried that they're not working hard enough, or they're working hard and they're worried they're not getting it done, right? Whereas the people who don't succeed think they're working too hard and need to back off, right?
Mhm.
That's where Owen is. Owen's like, I'm afraid to say it because I know it's this, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, that's where that comes from in that
Yeah.
place of Owen. So anyway, I knew that was it. I wanted to call it out because I also wanted to like really highlight it for people, like the win here. Like, it's because it's bigger than it's double what Owen's saying it is. It's fantastic. So anyway, all
Yeah.
right, back to this. So the reason Owen's saying that is because of certain opportunities that may disappear, and that can happen. Just like with pro sports, New York City Football Club might not renew our contract. That happens; it disappears. All
Yeah.
right, so that can happen. So let's base it off the first number that you were talking about.
Yep.
That being said, talk to us, Owen, about what the plans are for growth now in the next year. Year two is the goal.
Well, this is where I'm saying I think I'm pretty pumped. Like, right, there's a lot of first time uh mobile PTs, cash based PTs, because I am cash only too. So that's something that if I didn't make that clear, um, that maybe would beat my numbers of what I talked about with my boots on the ground marketing, excluding the big client, right? But also, um, I think the biggest thing I honestly see a pretty decent amount of growth, right? Mostly because in my area, I'm one of the more experienced PTs doing what I'm doing. A lot of what I'm seeing is new graduates, right, or very recent graduates, and I think that I'm going to be able to build that word of mouth. The other thing is I spent a lot. I've been psychotic about SEO and like doing it for cheap, right? So I've been writing blogs, I've been looking up things, I'm trying to figure out how to get my keywords up, and I'm at the point now where I know I'm basically everyone ahead of me is buying backlinks, which is kind of Google frowns on it, but it's you can spend 2,000 a month and basically shoot yourself up to the top of a link or top of the Google charts. I did that. I got to where I'm at, maybe number 10, right? So I'm almost on the first page just by like being psychotic about SEO. And then the other side of it too is because I can market and because I can kind of keep that ball rolling. I'm going to eventually hit my cap in terms of how many people I can see in a week,
Yeah,
right? Somewhere around like 20-ish is what I'm aiming for. I'm not quite there yet, but I will be. And then of course I'm going to raise prices. So, longtime listeners of this podcast know that I did something I call it the Netflix strategy,
yeah,
where I have 15 years experience. I'm an OCS. I'm all these different things, right? But I am way priced under someone who maybe just got out of school 2 years ago, right? Um, and I did that mostly because I realized I need more eyeballs on me. I need more people telling other people, getting great value for the service. And every time I bring in a new customer, I tell them, look, this is cheap for this year because I just started. These prices will go up. So everybody who's interacted with me
Love
knows
the pre-frame.
I will eventually be going to this. They know they're getting a deal. And that way they don't tell their friends like, hey, you can afford this. Right.
Yeah. What I love about that strategy of what you just explained is it was two things. Owen very specifically pre-framed people to understand, created actually a sense of urgency by doing that. So this is why you should buy now, naturally. And then the
Mhm.
third thing was he prepped them for the future and didn't build his services based off of his price. That is so important. It's a mistake that a lot of people make is, hey, I'm going to be the cheapest option. Well, guess what? Now you're going to get all the cheapest people who are buying your services. And so when you raise your prices, you're screwed. And now you'll find yourself in a tough pickle there. So
Yeah.
that's a great point of how you did that, creating the sense of urgency, right? Through basically saying that in a very, kind way, essentially, right? By doing
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Well, and that's the nice thing is, I tend to either put it out front, right? If I've been warm lead, right? So like a warm recommendation, oh, my friend says you're awesome, like all this stuff, right? If it's not that, then I want them to kind of feel like, hey, you're like, this is a great deal. Like, and then
Yeah.
I'll kind of say like, hey, just so you know, like this is cheap for now. So yeah, probably in the next month or so, I'm going to officially raise prices, right? In terms of like sending out an email to past and current patients. Um, I think I'm probably going to grandfather people in that are currently on a package, right? I'm not going to halfway through their package tell them they owe me more money.
Yep.
Um, excuse me. And depending on where I'm at with those packages, I guess I'll do case by case basis. Like if somebody is going to buy like three more, right? Maybe I do, maybe I don't, depending on the person, knowing their situation. But that's going to be like one out of my,
Yeah.
you know,
We'll
current
go over that.
caseload.
We'll go over that next question. But Owen, I have a question for you. Did you feel
So
like physio growth is where PTs turn their passion into profit? Do you think that you get expert advice and mentorship to expand your practice and achieve financial freedom? Then you should start there today at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. You
I
know?
know I had no idea what you were going to do. And I'm pretty sure anyone reading
That's the
this is
goal.
just like, why is he stopping everything? Is there a
That's the
train
goal. That
coming?
was the goal. That was the goal. All right, nice. So now we got that out of the way. So we did. All right. So Owen, to go to what you were just talking about with how you would prep people, because I have
Mhm.
some suggestions. Let's talk about kind of like the packages and the case by case basis. Because here's the good news, right? Because I can also talk about how I really can't make all my decisions anymore case by case. Because by making them all case by case, I have too many clients in terms of our practice of
Yeah.
where we are. You actually, if you do case by case, you actually confuse your staff. So you actually have to simplify. You
Mhm.
know this from the corporate side. You have to you have to start to actually, you can be broader and more case by case because it's just Owen. And so all
Yeah.
the processes run through Owen. If
Yeah.
the problem is as you scale and now all of a sudden the process run through other people, I remember trying to do that with people and explaining all the processes, and they actually
Yeah.
get frustrated with you because they're like, I can't keep up, right? Like I don't know what you're talking about, and that's a
Yeah, and
problem.
you at a bigger as a bigger owner open yourself up for price discrimination lawsuits,
Yes,
right?
it's so true.
Whereas
So now you
with
got to start
me,
thinking
I
about
can
this.
I can always say, hey, look, he's like 10 minutes farther away, so I charge this.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
talk to me now. So the best part is again for those of you who have listened to this podcast, we've talked about this with Owen. Owen, as you get busier where you are with Owen, a very logical, easy thing is either to cut down time or increase prices, right? In that
Mhm.
scenario. So let's do this because I think I already know the answers, but I want to do it just for the sake of listeners. But I
Mhm.
know Owen, one of your goals would eventually be to move into brick and mortar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still waffling on it about when, right?
Yes.
But I don't. It's if you asked me 3 months ago, it's let's get the next open space, and then but at the same time, I'm gonna have to see. But yes, the long term goal is brick and mortar.
So in terms of because right now you do have a gym you can do the classes out of, but that's not a brick and mortar like location where you have a spot that you get like a room.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is actually he's the owner there is open to it, right? So he
Yeah.
has a fitness studio that's kind of like out of the way, which would be a perfect size for a PT clinic. And obviously, if I pay him enough that it makes more than whatever classes he's holding in there, then it would work out. So,
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
there's an opportunity to take it over.
there's
Got
an
it.
option. Yeah,
Now,
there's an option.
do you have an idea what it would cost you? Again, because we can actually do
Yeah.
some. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do some like tactical coaching here, real quick, about like this?
Yeah.
Because actually, I think this is why you would want to raise prices. Because one of the things that I'm getting at with Owen here is going to be when you can pull these levers and when you can really start shopping, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, because I also don't know the area as well, but talk to me a little bit about the prices for that
I
particular.
would I would say because it's a smaller space than like a full sort of, a 1,500 square foot, suite in a strip mall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd say it'd be maybe somewhere around 1,000, right?
$1,000. Got it.
Yeah, because it's not it's in a really nice area, but it's kind of a convoluted space.
And that's what he would charge you, or that's what you think you'd pay.
That's what I think he would charge.
Got it.
Um, he's actually a really chill business owner, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that if it was something where we had to change maybe 100 up or 100 down, we would figure it out.
So let's go from here. So in terms of the 1K, now the space, would you have to furnish the space?
I mean, quote unquote furnished, right? So he's got a gym, right? So I would use
Yeah.
all of his fitness gym equipment. I would just kind of bring my table in, right? And then
But you
probably
would
I'd
do
have
it in the gym.
in the gym, yeah,
Got it. So
yeah.
you wouldn't have your own space.
Well, no, I would. It would be a studio. It's a classroom
Got
off
it.
the gym.
Got it. Got it. All right, nice. So the classroom's off the gym. Do you
Yeah.
have to furnish that classroom, or is there anything in there?
Do you mean furnish it like
Yeah,
repaint
yeah.
it, all that?
No, I mean, yeah, we can get into that too. But like, what does that classroom look like? Like, am I walking in and I'm like, hey, man, like, I'll give you a great example. Like, one of our locations, we walked in and it was like we had a gym that was like ours.
Oh,
We
okay.
had
So
another
I
one.
probably
We had a white box and we had to like put all the stuff in
I
it.
I would definitely change it. Like I would change some lighting up. I would probably do a little bit to change the doorway because it's a sliding door, so it's hard for some people to get over it. But not much.
Got
Yeah,
it.
probably
So
maybe $500 in upgrades.
500
Maybe
bucks we're
maybe
talking
a
about.
thousand, right?
Got it
Depending
to
on the
start.
door. Yeah.
Got it. So we're talking about a 1K space and we're talking about another 1K in startup costs, right?
Yeah.
To do it. So this is guys like what we start to think about. So again, Owen, how many approximately you're charging now? What exactly?
Right now, 150 an hour, but
150 an hour. Yeah.
very well, depending on how far away it is to drive. But I'd say, let's just say 175.
Well, that's what you're going to, correct?
That's what I'm going to
Yep.
175.
So here's why increasing that price is so effective for Owen, right? Because obviously the profit margin, the raise is going to be huge. But now,
Mhm.
Owen, talk to me a little bit about in terms of like the 175 an hour when you are going to when you're going to people's homes, right?
Yeah.
How many patients can you see, and how long do you see them for?
Um, Probably most people I know usually say they kind of stop around 20 in a week. I know one guy, he does 24, 25, but he's got no kids. He'll show up. He'll be there until like 7 p.m. and work like Saturdays. So for most of the PTs I know who have family, kids, things like that, it's about 20.
Got it. So 20 is the number we're going to work with. So
Yeah.
20 from that perspective. Now, that's because you're mobile, correct? And he's mobile as well.
Yeah.
All right. So do you see him for an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. So realize now, if you were to do stuff at your own clinic, right, your
Mhm.
own place, at what point, right? So the question I have to you is, how many patients like would you see at the clinic?
Um, I mean, like how many? Well, we could get into the whole like would I start taking insurance too to fill that, right? Because the problem is right now I have a big footprint, so that's part of the reason why I'm hemming and hawing on brick and mortar is I want to kind of bring the footprint down closer to me first.
Yeah, yeah.
I have more of an option to charge like full cash prices in a brick and mortar. Um, but I would say if 40-hour week, 40 patients, right? I'd actually toy between like the 1 hour and the 45-minute treatment, right? I think I can do a lot in 45 minutes. I think me going to a patient's house in 1 hour, a good portion of that is just me getting there and hawking my table in and all that stuff. But I'd say keep it around 40.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, if you're thinking 40 hours, right, there's
Mhm.
a certain point that Owen's going to hit here where he's leaving money on the table because he's not brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to tell Owen. And this is the piece that I would say to him, right? So if you think about overall, basically he's making 3,500 bucks a week. So at
Yeah.
3,500 bucks a week, to your point about your buddy, if you think about the weekly side of it, that's $182,000. There's a
Yeah.
certain point because this threshold now. Owen is in Arizona. I'm in Fairfield County. These numbers of $1,000 per month don't exist where I am. I mean,
Yeah.
but they sort of do. I will also tell you that. Like you can
Yeah.
find them, but the cheapest is going to be double that. Now,
Mhm.
that being said, at 182K, the next leap is then how do you get to this point where you have this location, right? And but
Yeah.
does it make sense? Because for Owen to think about if he's like, all right, I need to go, I'm stuck now, and that's
Mhm.
100% productivity. So let's be realistic and say that Owen's not going to hit that every week. So 170, we went from 150 times 20. If you think 150 times the 20, ultimately you're talking about $3,000 per week. So at $3,000 per week times 52, that's 156K. So the jump that he's about to make when he raises his prices from 175 times 20 is going to be the $500 per week. So the
Yeah.
reality is what I would say, and this goes along with the price, and like you're like I would grandfather people in.
Mhm.
What I would say is probably the next price jump. So from 175, right, to like 200,
Yeah.
I would really look at, okay, I would say, hey, all those people who are further away, I
Yeah.
would actually say, hey, the jump just went from 175 to 225,
Yeah.
unless you come to see me at my space.
Yeah.
And now my space is 175. And
Yeah.
now what happens is now you can see more people at that 175 number.
Yeah.
It's going to shrink your footprint and it's still going to make it worth your time to go out of the clinic. Right.
I see. So what you're so getting once you raise prices, the farther away people give them a deal for driving.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So
And then
that's
that also
and they're going to
premium.
be already locked in and used to that price of 175. They're already going to be used to it. So they're like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to pay it, but now I got to come to you." All right, that's kind of a pain. Or they're going to make it worth your while. They're going to bump it up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now what you've just done is you can leverage your time. Now this space is going to be huge for you. That's
Yeah.
what you can grandfather. And if you're afraid of doing that right off the bat, the way you can do it is you can if you have 20 people, what you can do is you can get 10 more people. So half the people you already have 10 people already rocking on this price point. So
Yeah.
now they're at least paying for your time at the space. And
Yep.
now you can say, hey, I got these certain hours. Then you can get everybody on board. So if you lose, realistically, you'll lose 30% at the worst of those 20 people. And
Yeah.
if you do maintain
Because
it,
of the price rise.
I bet yes, I bet even with the price rise, if you lose 30% of people going from 175 to 225, I guarantee that if you just stayed mobile, you're probably making more money anyway. So that's why
Yeah.
you could just keep raising prices. You really can. You can just keep going
Yeah.
up and up and up. And if you keep doing that, it's not going to matter. So that's kind of my point here is I think that when it comes to this aspect, that's how I would situate it for you. I would basically
Okay.
say, hey, keep basically raising it up. But that's how I would do it. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way for him to be brick and mortar, how to scale his business. So now, again, like kind of the next projection for him is like 150K next
Mhm.
year, and then
Yeah.
potentially brick and mortar the following year, or even the if he scales faster, and he's like, I'm at 20 people now, and I'm busting kind of at the seams, seeing
Yeah.
21 here multiple weeks in a row. I would consider you bopping that quicker
Yeah.
because you're going to make more money. It's that
Well,
simple. You keep scaling your business.
I am in no like, oh, I have to give people a year for this or whatever. As soon as I'm at 20 and I have a little bit of a waiting list, price is going up,
Yeah,
right? And just, and if I raise prices three times in a year, I raise prices three times in a year, right?
yeah,
Uh, because of that rule that you were talking about, like 30% of people will drop off. Then you have time to market your new price while you're still making the same amount if you raise it enough. And then you just kind of keep growing. So, yeah, I'm really excited
that's
for
awesome.
where the company's going, right? Um, I definitely think that having these conversations, having this mindset, um, obviously on a weekly basis for me, it's great, but just that sort of growth mindset that we always talk about is it's what's setting me up for these to be easy transitions versus oh crap, I never thought about that. Now I have a
Nice.
bunch of people expecting cheap, in-home PT, and now I gotta change that up, right?
Yeah,
I can already look at my entire caseload right now, and all of them are like, yeah, no, I understand. So I know that's going to be an
it's
easy
awesome.
email.
That's awesome. And I think ultimately when you think about this process, this is so inexpensive. I would actually say the jump that you want to think about, again, any physical therapist listening to this or is in a similar position as Owen, like I know he's talking about this gym, but the one thing about it is he's also got to make sure that you can get because the next jump after this is hiring a physical therapist and bringing somebody in. So he's also got to make sure that space can be furnished to house one or two more physical therapists on top of them. Because the reality is the next jump is to move somewhere, and that's a pain. Not so much from
Yeah,
a pain from a perspective of like not only just changing your footprint, you have limited options because now you've created a big. I liken this is that Owen is kind of like that small ship. Like it's like I always think of like old pirate ships, like a small ship. It's easy to maneuver, so you can move it. The more people you put on the boat, the bigger the boat gets. It's harder to turn. So like that's exactly how I would look at it. Is you want to make it as you want to be making rudder corrections, not big movements. But based on what Owen said, and what I would say to him is, if you want to take your PT practice to new heights with Physio Growth, our mentorship program helps physical therapists grow their business and boost income. Join us at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group today.
That was the smoothest I've seen. That was nice.
That's nice. Stuck the
Look
landing.
at you. Somebody's been practicing in the mirror.
Every day, every day.
All right. And with that, we will head out, my friend. Have a good week. Oh, wait, he's taking a
Thanks,
slow
man.
water bottle.
You got me right in the
There it
water
is.
bottle. Yep, you got
Right
it.
in the middle
Thanks,
of the
man.
water bottle. All
Absolutely.
right.
We're good. Thanks,
Bye.
man. See ya.